Okay. Drink a little water. Sit here and give a few seconds for people to come in. Yeah, let's see how we're gonna do this here. Let's see if I can maybe adjust this a little bit. I think that's fine. I think that's cool. Yeah, that's good. We'll give it a few minutes. Just make sure we got everything set up here. I don't know. I might not take the story. Seems kind of corny. We'll see. All right, here we go. Let's see what's happening. 7 p.m. Oh, hey, Zandy. How you doing? Welcome. Thursday's webinar, 7 p.m. Welcome. I'm just going to give it a few more minutes and see if I can get a few more people in here so we can get started. But yeah, welcome. I'm glad you could join it. I hope you get something out of it this evening. So I'll give it a few more minutes. What time is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, I can wait a few seconds. A few seconds. What happened here? There we go. All right, there we go. All right. 7:02. I'll give it maybe one more minute and see what we got. Man, let me get myself together here. Oh man, much better, much better. All right, 7:03. What happened here? All right, there we go. Ronnie, hey Ronnie, what's up, man? Welcome. So we got a couple of people in here. Let's go ahead and get started. So first of all, hey everybody, welcome to Thursday's Mindset Webinar. You guys know I do these every week, every week, same time, every Thursday, 7 p.m. So thank you for coming. I hope you guys, get something out of this webinar. I always get really excited when I get ready to do these webinars. I really enjoy doing them. It's a lot of fun. If it's 10 people or one person, it doesn't matter. Like I really get a kick out of doing these. So today's webinar is going to be talking about breaking free from external validation. Again, when I do these webinars, I try to come up with topics that are kind of like, topics for the day, for today's, society, for today's world, right? I try to talk about stuff that's, a little relevant. Hey, Elizabeth. Oh, that's Ellie. Hey, Ellie. What's up, girl? So I try to talk about topics that are, like I said, relevant to today. You know, things that are happening today and that affect people today, right? So today, Thursday, the webinar is about external validation. I know, just not just as a coach, you know, with my clients, but just in general, living life. There's a lot of people out here who are worried or sort of overconsumed, is that the word? With external validation instead of building their self-worth from within. Okay. So myself personally, everybody on here, I think John, okay, everybody, hey John, everybody on here knows who I am. You know what I do. I'm a mindset self-worth coach. So for me, my deal, my job, my goal is to help my clients, and just even if they're not my clients, people that, you know, for example, come to these webinars, to work with their self-worth from within. You know, not be so worried or concerned with or consumed with external validation, because external validation, it comes and goes, right? You know, and the people that you worried about getting validation from, they don't care about you. They really don't. They do not have time to be concerned about you. Everybody's got their own shit going and they don't really care. So breaking free from external validation. Okay. I'm going to help you today in today's webinar with building your self-worth from within. So I would love for you guys to, I don't know what you guys are doing, or if you're sitting here watching, or if you're doing something else while you're watching, whatever. But if you have the opportunity, I want you to grab a pen and a pad and write this stuff down. Okay. Because like I always say in all my webinars, this is stuff you can use all the time. All right. So today what I'm going to do, as I always do, I go through the bullet points first. Okay. And then we can go ahead and get right into the meat of it. Right. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about understanding external validation. Obviously, if you want to talk about something, you know, if you want to break something down, discuss something, understand something, you have to define it. Right. So we're going to define and understand external validation. Okay. That's the first thing. And then we go on down here to number 2. We're going to talk about the cost of seeking external validation. Like what it costs you to do that, right? Mental health, the trap of perfectionism, that whole thing, right? And then we'll talk about shifting to internal worth or internal self-worth, okay? And then we'll talk about, I'll give you some practical strategies to help you build and cultivate your self-worth, all right? And then after that, the final thing will be overcoming challenges and staying committed. That's obviously, you know, a big thing as well, right? So let's go ahead and get started. So when I was putting this together this past week, I was thinking, or actually, yeah, it was this past week, I was thinking, you know, I had a story that I was going to use about a cracked pot and whatever. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, no, that's not something I want to do. I don't really want to use the story. But what I do want to do is I want to ask you guys a question. Okay. Now, you don't have to write it down in the comments, obviously, but I want you to write. I want to ask you this question, and throughout this webinar, I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I want you to think about them. You know, just some stuff to reflect on. Okay. Number 1, I'm going to ask you this question, and you tell me. Well, you don't have to tell me, but think about it. What does self-worth mean to you? When you think about self-worth, what does that mean to you? Just think about it for a second. Okay. All right. Well, let's talk about, before we'll get to it, but let's talk about understanding the external validation. So external validation, what is that? What is external validation? I would say that it's ego driven. Okay. The ego loves to be fed, to be stroked, if you will. So anything that would stroke your ego and make you feel better from the outside, external, obviously, meaning from the outside, internal is inside. We know that, right? So give me some examples of external validation that a lot of people seek. You could say acceptance. You could say praise, compliments, social media likes, you know, grades, I don't know, job promotions, other people's opinions, The list goes on and on and on and on and on, right? So, but understand something. Not all of these things are bad. It's not always a bad thing to be accepted or have praise and compliments and, whatever, right? It's not a bad thing to have it. It's just that when you rely on it so much, when it becomes a crutch, right? When it becomes, something that you're dependent on, then that's when it starts going sour. So that's pretty much external validation is the validation that we receive from the outside world. Like I said, be it from media, be it from friends, family, coworkers, whatever it is, right? So that's the first part. So what I do want to do actually is talk to you about the signs that you may rely too much on external validation. Now that we understand what external validation is, we know that it's acceptance from the outside and it's ego driven. And I gave you some examples. So let me give you some examples or some signs rather. We'll talk about them. Some of the signs that you may rely too much on external validation. Number one, difficulty making decisions by yourself. Number two, fear of disapproval or criticism. Number three, focus on social media and approval. That's just, oh man, this whole social media thing is just crazy. Anyway, number four, constant need for reassurance. Number five, people-pleasing behavior. So we'll go through a couple of these, and then we'll go down to the cost go down to the cost, and then we'll go ahead and shift over to how you can get out of that and work on your internal self-worth. But let's go ahead and talk a little bit about these things here. So difficulty making decisions alone. What's an example of that? Well, you can always say that you're relying too much on external validation if you have difficulty making decisions by yourself. You constantly seek other people's opinions, right? Before making choices. And I'm not even talking about these important choices. There are also small things about your life. You're so worried about what other people are going to say. You're so worried about what they're going to think. Someone you live with, you work with, whatever. You constantly seek their opinions before making choices. You feel unsure or anxious about these decisions because unless they're validated by somebody else. So basically you can't stand on your own 2 feet and make your own decision because you're scared of what other people will think. Okay, that is definitely a sign that you are leaning too much on external validation, and you need to deal with that. Okay, number 2, fear of disapproval or criticism. You avoid expressing your true opinions or your true self because you're afraid they might be unpopular. Okay, hey, tell us negative feedback. Even if it's constructive, you may think that it's an attack. Even if it's coming from somebody who cares about you, who's actually trying to help you. It could be a mentor, a father, mother, husband, wife, friend, whatever. But and it could be very constructive criticism. But if you're so used to worried about external validation, even that feedback could be considered critique, like negative critique, right? So there's that. Then there's also like I said, over focus on social media and approval. You're constantly on your phone trying to see how many likes you get. You create this presence, which I see a lot now on social media, which is, and it's not just the young people. It's just people in general. People seek validation. So what do they do when it comes to social media? They create this, I want to say image, but this presence, right? On social media that they know will give them the approval that they're looking for, right? Instead of being authentically themselves, because they know that if they're authentically themselves, they may be unpopular. Someone may not like their feed. Someone may like, for example, I am authentically myself. I don't do no fake nothing. When you see me on social media, on Instagram and Facebook, what you see is what you get, right? I don't put no fake, I don't create a presence to make people like me. No, I just put it out there the way it is. Now, there are going to be people that don't like it. There are going to be people that, have something negative to say about it. That's fine, right? But that's because I'm authentically myself and I'm not worried about, what the outward people think. I know myself. But there are people that really use this social media they basically live through social media. Does that make sense? And they have to have this perfect picture of everything, and because they need the validation, right? Very dangerous, very very dangerous to your mental health and to your self-worth. Okay, let's talk about the constant need for reassurance. You frequently ask for compliments or validation from friends, family, or colleagues. Now, when I say frequently ask for compliments, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily going out there actually physically asking for the compliment. It's the way you are, your aura, how you carry yourself. The level of insecurity that you have is so out there that you're wearing it, on your sleeve. People can see it, people can feel it, right? And then you struggle to feel good about yourself unless someone reassures you. So these are all ways of, and then also we talked about people, we can say, the people-pleasing behavior. You say yes to things you don't want to do. You break down your boundaries because you don't want to disappoint others, or you don't want to cause waves, that kind of thing, right? So there's a whole bunch of different ways that you can see like these signs. There's a whole bunch of different signs that you can see if you rely too much on external validation. All right, and those are just some of them. Now I want to ask you another question. Okay, let's see. We'll go down here to the question. Group question. And like I said, think about it. In what areas of your life do you seek validation the most? In what areas of your life do you seek validation the most? Think about that. Be honest. Okay. All right. Cool. Now, the cost of seeking external validation. What does it cost to be always considered and concerned and worried about how other people feel about you? Right? What does that cost? If I ask you that question, what do you think it costs? What do you think it would cost you how much does it cost? If you think about some of the things that happen when you rely on external validation, right? Well, there's a whole bunch of different, things, but we'll talk about how it affects the mental health, and we'll talk about decision making and relationships. So obviously we know that there's this, what happens when one of the costs of seeking external validation too much, or relying solely on external validation without relying on yourself and your own personal self-worth. One of the things is the trap of perfectionism, okay? The fear of failure. So you get caught up in this trap of perfectionism. You're always trying to be perfect. You're always trying to be a specific image of yourself because you want people to like you. You want to get that validation from people. So, like I said earlier with social media, you put up this presence, of yourself so that will get you the validation that you want, that you're looking for, because you're trapped in that. So that's the perfectionism thing. You're scared to make a mistake. Also, fear of failure. Obviously, if you have that going on, you have fear of failure, because failing to you is the worst thing that could ever happen. Does that make sense? You're scared to death to fail, which failing is going to happen. Even if you're afraid of it, it's going to happen anyway, right? You just have to learn from it. So that's one of the things. Another thing is that's one way that it can affect your mental health. Another way it can. So as an entrepreneur, as a business person, as someone who, is a business owner, or if you're a manager, if you're in a managerial position at your job, or, even if you're just, a coworker, it affects your mental health in the sense of how you actually interact and deal with people on a daily basis. Because it affects you subconsciously. You don't know it. You may not necessarily recognize it, but you're so we talked about earlier, people pleasing and, the constant need for reassurance and all these different things. It comes up, and you may not necessarily realize it, but that's how it affects you. And now your mental health starting to, suffer because you feel like, you feel this, what would you call it? You feel this stress, like this pressure, this, I have to keep up with this is where I get my validation, and everybody likes me and everybody cares about me and everybody sees me and blah 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 blah. This is how I feel good about myself when everybody else likes me instead of me liking myself, right? This is where I'm at. So I got to keep that level up. I got to keep it there, right? And it starts getting higher and higher and higher, and sooner you have to keep chasing and chasing and chasing. You run yourself ragged that way, right? You'll run yourself into the ground that way. It's not, it really is not good for your mental health. And it gives you, we talked about boundaries. It helps you, you deteriorate your boundary wall, poor decision making. If you're an entrepreneur, you're a business person, you don't have time to be super concerned about outside validation, because if you're worried about what other people think, you're going to make poor decisions when it comes to your business. You're going to make poor decisions when it comes to your relationship. You're going to make poor decisions when it comes to your friendships, right? You're going to make poor decisions when it comes to your own personal life in every aspect, right? If you're constantly focusing on, hey, what do people think? Are they going to give me the love I want? The validation that I want for myself, right? So this is where we're going. We were talking about, what's happening, and soon I'll give you, the strategies of how to fix it and how not to be that way, right? But we want to discuss it so that we understand it and we understand what these things are and how bad it can get, right? So let me ask you another question. When have you let external validation dictate your choices and it turned out worse than you thought? Because obviously when you allow external validation to dictate your choices, it's not going to end up good. You know that it's not going to end well. It's going to end bad for you. It usually ends bad for you. But when did you do that? When did you allow external validation, right? External validation. And when did you allow it to dictate your choices and it ended bad for you? Like really bad. Just think about that. You don't have to answer. Just think about that. Like I said, throughout this webinar, I'm going to be asking you guys some questions. You should be writing these things down. Tedros, and we have another Tedros. Okay, hey guys. So now we're going to, did we talk about that? Yes. Now we're going to shift. We understand the cost of external validation. We've talked about, some of the signs that you're allowing it to take over too much, like the constant need for reassurance, people pleasing, fear of disapproval, criticism, things like that, right? We talked about that. And now we understood external validation, what it means, and we've talked about how dangerous it can be and what happens when we allow it to dictate how we move around and live in our lives, right? It basically paralyzes us. It keeps us from actually living the best life or the best version of ourselves that we can be, because we're too afraid to step out, right? We're too afraid to actually be ourselves authentically. So now we understand that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to the shift to internal self-worth. So self-worth versus self-esteem. Let's, before we go too far into this, let's go ahead and differentiate between the two, okay? The shift to internal self-worth. So now we got self-worth and self-esteem, not versus, but the difference, okay? So what is it? Self-worth is in here. It's inside. It's how you feel. It's the deep, unwavering belief, okay, that you are valuable and that you deserve love and respect no matter what, exactly as you are, okay? It has nothing, listen, self-worth has nothing to do with your appearance. It has nothing to do with your achievements. It has nothing to do with your external approval. It has nothing to do with your titles, how much money you have, what kind of job you have, where you live. None of that. All of that is external. All of that is got nothing to do with the actual worth of yourself. It's how you view and value you. Based, stripped away of all of that. Both yourself in your strengths and your weaknesses, your goods and your bads, your evils and your beautifuls, like uglies and beautifuls. Everything about you as a human being, right? How you view that, period. That's self-worth. Okay, does that make sense? I hope I'm making sense today. So, and this remains constant, okay, whether you succeed or fail. Okay, now self-esteem is how you feel about yourself based on your abilities, your accomplishments, how other people perceive you, how people see you, okay? Your title and all that other stuff I talked about, your title and who you are and where you live and this and that, that gives you self-esteem. That makes you feel that's different. And that can actually fluctuate, obviously, depending on life circumstances. You know, achievements and external feedback also play a huge role in your self-esteem and how it fluctuates. So that's the difference. So this is what I want you to do before I give you some practical strategies. Now we're going to get into the good stuff. Before I give you these strategies, we're going to talk about as far as how to help you hold up your self-esteem, your self-worth, and not be too concerned or worried about external validation, how to stay away from it and how to manage it. Okay, before we get into that, I want you to do me a favor. Unless I say, I hope you guys grab a pen and a pad. I want you to write down 3 qualities. Okay, 3 qualities that you admire about yourself that have nothing to do with anybody else. Not something that people told you, not something that people like about you. No, I'm talking about what you like and know about. 3 positive qualities that you admire about yourself. And they may be qualities that people don't even know about. That's fine. And that's even better because that's the way, that's fine too. Right? So I want you to write that down. I want you to write those down for a bit, and I'll give you a couple seconds to write those down. Hey, Melina. Hey, Pat. Let's see, I need to grab a pen. I'm telling you guys to write a pen. I need to grab a pen myself. You guys write those down. I'll see. Let's see here. This is something's wrong with this one. All right. So you guys wrote those down. Now let's get into some of the good stuff. Why you guys actually came. The practical strategies to cultivate self-worth. Let's talk about that. So what I did was I wrote down 5 of them. There's a whole bunch of them, but I wrote down 5 because I usually, what I like to do with these webinars, I like to do between 3 and 5, different topics and break them down. So the 5 are, and you can write these down, mindset. This is how you can, these are strategies that are going to help you with your self-worth, okay? How to build up your self-worth. Mindset shift, self-compassion, personal achievement, mindfulness, and setting healthy boundaries. Okay, we're going to go through those real quick, and then we'll talk about overcoming challenges and staying committed. Okay, so number 1, mindset shift. Now, I'm a mindset self-worth coach. What does that mean? Mindset shift. How do you shift your mind? Reframe negative self-talk and limiting beliefs. Listen, I do webinars on a lot of different topics, but a lot of the topics that I do the webinars on, the same thing, the same sort of message, if you will, comes through within each webinar. And it's negative self-talk and limiting beliefs. I cannot stress it enough how important it is for you to reframe your thinking. Stop thinking, okay, so negative self-talk, limiting beliefs. If you really want to work on your self-worth, if you really want to develop and really work on your personal development and be the best version of yourself, you have to be that person. How do you be that person? Okay, so let me say it like this. This is the Andrew, right, that I want to be. Let's use myself as an example. This is the Andrew that I want to be, whatever that means to me, right? If it's a financial thing, what business, whatever. This is the guy I'm trying to be, right? So who is that guy? And when I say who is that guy, what does he do? Like when I say what does he do, not for a living, but like what does he read? What does he listen to? Who does he talk to? Who does he associate himself with? What does he eat? What sort of things does he do, for his physical activity? How does he treat his relationships with people? You understand that? And then you have to be that person. Become that person now, and then start becoming that person now, and it'll help you get there quicker. Now, what I mean by that is, how do you become that person? Well, you have to reframe the way you think about yourself. Stop telling yourself, I can't do it. Stop telling yourself, that's the Andrew I want to be. But, when I get this, then I'll be that Andrew. Or when this happens, I'll be that Andrew. Or when that happens, no, that's not how it works. You have to start being that person now. Be it, believe it, see it, be it, and believe it within yourself. Really, really internalize who that person is. And that means working deeply on yourself with all of the negative things about yourself and doing so with compassion. Reframing your negative self-talk. Stop talking to yourself negative. Do yourself a favor. Think about it like this. The next time you have a negative thought or a limiting belief about yourself, right? Okay, the limiting beliefs, we'll do that in a second. But a negative self-talk. Right? We all have that guy. And I did a webinar a couple weeks ago about negative self-talk. So we have that guy or that girl, the negative guy or girl that sits on our shoulder, whispers in our ear all the negative shit. You can't do that. Why not? Well, because you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough, or it's not going to work out for you, or it's not meant for you, or that's too hard, or you need to do this first, or it's procrastination, right? It's the ego telling you what not to do because the ego's afraid for you to step out of your comfort zone, which is going to make your ego be in check, right? Does that make sense? So we know what that is. So the next time you have that come in your ear, think of it like this. Would you talk to your best friend? Like, would you talk to someone who came to you, a friend of yours, the way that you talk to yourself? Well, I'm saying negatively. Would you really? Would you allow your friends to talk to you like that? Your kids, your wife, your husband, right? To talk to you like that? The answer is probably no, right? So if that's the case, why would you talk to yourself like that? And how do you think, or how do you expect to grow as a person and become that person, Andrew, if I'm talking about myself, how do you expect to become that person, that best version of yourself, when you're constantly talking down to yourself? Okay, that negative talk is energy, and it's negative energy. It holds you down and it pulls you down, right? It keeps you in a downward spiral. So reframe that negative talk. Instead of saying the negative thing, next time that voice on your shoulder whispers some negative shit in your ear, reverse it. Say the exact opposite of what they're telling you. Okay, it's the same thing with the limiting beliefs. Oh, I can't do that because I'm not smart enough. Well, no, I can't do that now because I don't know how, but I'm going to learn, right? Okay, for you, a perfect example of a limiting belief. Something I used to tell myself, right? So I can use myself as an example. I used to always tell myself, man, I keep messing up. I keep messing up. I can't do nothing right. I always be fucking up. That's how I would talk to myself, right? So instead of saying you always messing up, you always fucking up, you always, you can't do nothing right, you change that limiting belief. I'm learning. I made a mistake. Okay, I learned from the mistake. I take accountability for the mistake. If you can fix it, whatever, if you've done some wrong to someone or whatever, you got to fix that or whatever. But you learn from it. What can I learn from this mistake? What can I learn from this setback? It's always something happening to me. Okay, what can I learn from that? Do you understand what I'm saying? You gotta switch that limiting belief. So that's what I mean when I say mindset shift. Shift the way you think. Go from negative to positive always. Now, understand, and I understand, this is easier said than done. This is not going to happen tomorrow, right? I know that it is a, as I always say, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So it's going to take time. But the more you do it, the more you think about it and do it, the more easier it'll become. Okay, with time, okay? The more often you do it, the more often you catch yourself in that negative spiral or that disbelief or whatever, the more you catch yourself, the quicker you catch yourself, the easier it'll be. Now, I find myself now catching myself in this negative, when I have these negative thoughts or whatever, I find myself catching myself a lot quicker now than I would before. Before I would have the negative thought and it would sit and, it would fester and, it would cause me to, act accordingly, right? But now I'm able to catch it. I'm able to catch it a lot quicker because it's training. It's like a muscle. You got to train it. The mindset is like a muscle. You have to train it. You have to do it every day, constantly every day, working on it, not trying to panic, don't have to be in a rush or in a hurry. Like I say, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Okay. So that's mindset shift. The second one is self-compassion. So treat yourself the same way you would treat a friend of yours that came to you for help, right? You have a loved one, a family member, or someone you care about that comes to you for help with whatever the situation is. They really need help and they know that you can help them and you want to help them. How would you treat them, right? Same thing. Treat yourself the same way. Self-compassion. When you make a mistake, when things go wrong, or you step, out of bounds, or you have these negative situations, negative thoughts about yourself, or you don't, you go towards your goal and you fall short, something happens. It's okay. Failure is going to happen. I know people don't want to hear that, but failure is going to happen. And guess what? Guess what else? You're supposed to fail. You're supposed to fail. Not completely, but you're supposed to fail. You're supposed to have a mistake, a misstep, or, a setback or a challenge. It's supposed to happen. That's how you learn, right? You wouldn't know how sweet things are if you didn't know how salty they were or sour, right? You wouldn't know what cold is if you didn't know what hot was. Does that make sense? Yin and yang, the opposites. So you got to have setbacks. You got to have challenges. You got to have failures in order for you to understand how to learn, and then how it feels to have, the achievements and to have, the successes, right? So be kind to yourself. Beating up on yourself is not going to do any good. It's only going to hold you in a downward spiral of anxiety and fear and anger. And here we go, right? That's not what we want. Another thing is setting healthy boundaries. Learning to say no and making choices aligned with your values. So I did a reel recently, and on that reel, I said, no is a complete sentence, right? No is a complete sentence. So you got to learn how to set boundaries. This is how you shift your mindset and you have your self-compassion. This is another strategy to help you with your self-worth. You got to say no. You got to set boundaries. And when I say set boundaries, so I'm not talking necessarily about external boundaries, boundaries with other people. Of course you have to set boundaries with other people and, make sure that your boundaries are respected. And like I say, no is a complete sentence. So you don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to, justify whatever. You can just say no to the people, right? But I'm talking about boundaries to yourself. Set yourself healthy boundaries with yourself, meaning make choices that align, that go along with your values, and make sure that those choices that you're making are actually because they go along with your values. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's boundaries. Personal achievement, track your progress. What I do when I say track your progress based on self-set goals of external validation. So tracking your progress. This is how you build your self-worth. Have a journal, okay? Write down a progress report, okay? A progress journal of your wins, right? Celebrate your wins, okay? And then we have mindfulness and reflection. So that's just basically developing inner awareness. You don't necessarily, you meditate, I meditate, but when I say mindfulness, I don't necessarily mean, sit and meditate for 25 minutes. Some people can do that, some people can't. When I say mindfulness, take a moment to reflect. Take a moment to sit back and reflect, not just on, what it is you need to do or what it is you haven't done or what it is that went wrong, but reflect on your progress, reflect on your wins, reflect on your successes, right? That'll help you with the motivation. That will definitely help build your self-worth, all right? So let's talk a little bit about overcoming. Let's see, what time is it? Okay, let's talk a little bit about overcoming challenges and staying committed. So in order for you to overcome, you're gonna, like I said, you're gonna have challenges, you're gonna have setbacks, you're gonna have failures. It's gonna happen. How do you overcome that? What do you do? Number one, reframe your perspective. As I said, view criticism, okay, as feedback for growth, not a personal attack. So don't worry, like people gonna say anything, they're gonna say it anyway, right? But look at it as an opportunity for growth, not a personal attack. Understand also that rejection is not a reflection of your worth, but yes, rejection is not a reflection of your worth. You're going to be rejected. People are going to say, things that doesn't have anything to do with how you are and what you are. It's just, and you can't take it personal. Okay. So also separate your emotion from the logic. So this is what this, I'm talking now about, because you're seeking personal validation, a lot of times you're going to have rejection, right? And the more you seek that, the more rejection it's just going to happen, right? But even if you're not into the whole, seeking validation thing, you're just living your life, you're going to have rejection. So how do you deal with the rejection? Separate the emotion from the logic. After the initial sting of rejection settles, ask yourself, okay, what can is there some truth to that? What can I learn from that? All right. And then also consider the source. When we talk about criticism and we talk about rejection, or we talk about, facing critique, there's positive and negative, obviously, constructive and destructive criticism. So constructive criticism, is that somebody, like I said, is a mentor, someone you care about, someone who's trying to help you? You probably want to listen to that. Obviously, and you should take it seriously. But if it's negative, obviously, you don't want to have to deal with the negativity. You can just, we know what to do with that, okay? And focus on what you can control, okay? Focus on what you can control. Don't dwell on the rejection. Ask yourself, what can I learn? Same thing with the failures. Don't dwell on the failure. Dwell on what can I learn from the failure, okay? And that is how you develop a strong self-image. Remind yourself of past successes and strengths. Don't always focus on, like I said earlier, what you did wrong or what you didn't do or what you should have done or anything else like that. Focus on your success and focus on your strengths. Rejection doesn't define you, but your resilience and your response will. Okay? So the takeaway from this, I hope, is that you all have learned how to deal with the setbacks and self-doubt, and creating a personal self-worth action plan. So a personal self-worth action plan basically is how you plan to go about your day, and some of the things that we talked about, today, what not to think of as far as validation, how to manage our validation, addiction, right? And how to use more of our own personal self-worth and how we feel from the inside out that to govern how we live our life and go out and live and go after our goals, as opposed to, worrying about what other people think. Okay. So this is the end of the webinar. I want to thank you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I always enjoy these, man. I get a kick out of these. Every time I do it every week, I get excited. My wife laughs at me. She's like, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I love this. So listen, here's the deal. For those of you, let's see what we got here. Yeah, okay, we're good. Oh, wow, there's a lot of people here. Cool. Kim. Hey, Kim. Oh, Therese, what's up? Wow. I didn't know. More people than I thought. So, for those of you that are saw the video or saw this webinar and you want to know more about my coaching, here comes the sales pitch. You're interested in my coaching, you want to know what I do, how I do it, and if I can do it for you. Here's what you do. You contact me through email, levelupcc065@gmail.com. Or you can, hit me here on DM. And what we'll do is we'll book a free call. Okay, this call is like an hour, 45 minutes or whatever, right? You tell me what your challenges are. You tell me what your goals are. You tell me what it is you're trying to do as far as, becoming the best version of yourself, and how you can elevate, how you can work on your self-worth so that you can actually go out there and get those goals, right? And then I tell you what I do, how I do it, how long it takes, how much it costs, and all of that good stuff. And then we see if it's a match, right? And if it's a match, we take it from there. Does that make sense? Makes sense. Okay. So next week is going to be Thursday. Yeah, next week we're going to do the same thing, 7 p.m. Facebook Live, Level Up Group. Okay. I have a pretty good idea. I won't tell you now, but I got a pretty good idea about a topic that I want to talk about that I know is really going to be interesting and really going to be good. You guys really going to enjoy it. Okay. So thank you for the evening. You guys take care of yourselves, and I will see you next week.